Good morning, everybody. It's Kula Dula from RawStocks, and we have another edition of our pre-market prep. Today, we have potentially a run on Tesla for 470 that could lead to ultimately us seeing 500. NVDA, will we see it break over 180 and start to get its expansion? We're going to cover all of this today. And it's an exciting day on data. So we'll cover it all. Let's get into it. Shout out to our sponsors, Black Box Stocks and GammaEdge. Without those guys, we would not be able to provide this every single day. So shout out to those guys. Make sure you use the links in the bio to get the access to the data that I use to decipher the markets every single day. You've got a 14-day free trial if you use my link in the bio or description. Depends on where you see this. Okay, so what do we see? We saw a little bit of a reversal off of the daily 20 down here. And yeah, that's our SMA daily 20 here. Sold down. Right? We talked about how breaking down after a long distribution here on the daily 4, which is what we use, which is something I love using for distribution, right? The daily 4. And you can see that this thing just kind of came and it showed a little bit of weakness here, right? And then we saw a definite sign of weakness. Then we had a larger pullback. And ultimately, it got bought up on Friday. Now, we're opening up near, let's take a look. This is kind of what it's going to look like. 66.78 is where we're sitting at right now. The all-time highs right back at 6,700, right? So if we're at 66.78 right now, that puts us up right in this range where we've closed this gap. And there's another gap here at 66.92. So we're going to look at all that. Let's dive into the macros for the week. Let me adjust my mic a little bit. I'm a little bit higher today. Today we have pending home sales month over month. Trump's going to speak at 12:15. So you got to know there's volatility involved with that. Tuesday, we have a ton of Fed speaking this week, by the way, just a ton. I imagine this is by design. They're trying to pump the brakes, I believe. But anyways, JOLTS job openings here on Tuesday. That's going to be your big one to be watching. That's going to come after the market opens on Tuesday. Wednesday, we're going to have the OPEC meetings. That's going to impact fuel quite a bit. So you need to be watching that, especially if you play like crude like futures or anything like that. And then we have ADP, non-farm employment, the NFE here change at 7:15 on Wednesday. This should be interesting to see how that looks. And then we're going to get insight on PMI and then the ISM manufacturing PMI as well. So, and this one right here, construction spending will give us another look into a recovery potentially in the construction field, because if you've noticed, they've talked about this quite a bit, that the construction field, they believe, has been in a recession. However, we're going to see if they want to climb out of that, and you might find some stocks in that would be very beneficial to you. Challenger job cuts, not so big, but unemployment claims on Thursday. And then Friday, my favorite, average hourly earnings. This is always could be a big mover here. Underrated. Let's just put that, underrated. And then, of course, NFEs again, and the unemployment rate drops on Friday. So, and services PMI. So there's quite a bit of data on Friday, and it could jump from pre-market a little bit after open. And then, of course, you have the 9 o'clock drop there on the PMI on Friday. So a lot of news this week. It's something that you need to consider whenever you're talking about swings and stuff like that. There is a tremendous amount of potential volatility, but could it all just be bullish? Potentially, right? So let's dive into the data today. Full complex 6,800 has shrank. We're back to a 6,700 speculation wall here at the supply, the gamma exposure supply here. And then we have our demand back at 6,610. So virtually what this is saying, 6,600 pivot for us to continue to make our push towards 6,700 and 6,800. So this is essentially giving you a green light by the dip type of deal. Time frame, who knows? But realistically, it kind of looks like in the next maybe 2 weeks that we could potentially see 6,800, but I would imagine we see a large pullback in towards the second half of October. And I'm going to cover something that I don't really cover that often, but I do want to cover this today. So let's look at the 0 day. You can see virtually that we have it's more of a collar here between 6670 and 6610, looking to kind of maintain us in this range. If it wants to break out, we could get this squeeze to 6,700. Okay, and that's kind of where we're at. We're right there at that 6678. I imagine we're going to pull back towards that 75 to 70 range by the time we open. I do not believe we'll open here at this 78 range. I think we'll open up more so in our intraday chart. If you take a look here, turn these off. We're going to open up likely near the positive gamma exposure here at this 70-75 mark. Okay. And this is going to be a deciding factor for us on the day, in my opinion. As we open near this range, okay, we're going to take this high for that previous day. We're going to close that gap. Now, is this something where we see a open? Let's go 15 minute. Is this something where we see an open and then we see it slip it and then we see a move down towards 66.45? This is absolutely a possibility today, okay? And based on the data, I wouldn't have any issue. As far as you avoid 0 day today, look at buying into this 66.45. I don't have any issue with that, okay? Is there a possibility that we slip this and go all the way back down towards our negative? Sure, there's a possibility. I think this will be bought up quite a bit at this point, and I think you could see a V-shaped recovery if that does happen, unless this just wants to come and sits on this, right? And that would be a real interesting read for me today on moving forward, as far as is that a positive or neutral thing or a bearish thing. It'd have to look at the tape later on the day. However, if we do remain or we bounce off of 66.45 and push over the top of this, watch for our key level here. This is our gap closure at 66.92. Watch for this would be a squeeze up towards that 6,700 level. I would imagine that at that point that we'd get hung up or we see some type of reversal. So if in the beginning of the AM session, we see just a drop before really pushing down into this range, I imagine that we have a good shot at getting a rejection off of this, and maybe we play a range, or maybe we slip this and retest into this zone. But just know that over the top of 66.75, you have virtually a 25 point potential squeeze to the upside towards 6,700. All right. Okay. Now, let's take a look at NVIDIA. I haven't done this one yet this morning. Briefly, let's just say I glanced at it, okay? Full complex remains 180. Go figure. Today's expiration, or this week's expiration, we could see that there's a nice bullish move. Tons of net delta support under here. This is buy the dip, buy the dip, buy the dip. Into that 190. But the fact remains that the large wall is here at 180. if we do press over the top of it, then we see, sorry, ugh, we should see an expansion towards 185, and this may create a further expansion towards 190 and potentially 200. That will be the expansion when we do see NVIDIA breakout. I have a hard time believing that we're going to get to that prior to some type of earnings or something. But that is most definitely the case for us. So as it stands right now, let me fix this. We are on a 180, 182.5 to 170. So technically the wall here stands for the weekly at 182.5, but you need to know that the greater wall is at 180. Okay, that the full complex wall is at 180. So I'm going to put this here with the caveat that I'm going to put a resistance here at 180. Let's just go ahead and do this, and then we'll put this at 180. That's resistance. Okay. And then your support is down into 177.5 where we're at. And I'll leave 172.5. I don't believe that we'd ever get down to 170 today. So this indicates kind of what we're looking at here, that this is a potential push over our large full complex call wall here. Break over the top of this, it could get squeezy into 182.5, and then you get your potential gamma squeeze towards 185, or potentially see an expansion towards 190. All right. This is a definite possibility. I'm going to leave it at 185 today. I have a hard time believing that we'd get a move past that, but I could be wrong. I could be wrong. So Friday, we talked about a potential. This looked like a great move towards 177.5 to 180. And, you know, it snuffed it, and then it drove towards it at the end of the day, and then ultimately got sold on. Would have been a winner. Not all moves, not all days are winners, kids. Not all days. So this is what we're looking at today. I think that if you're trying to play NVIDIA here, it's really not a benefit to you. You'd have to see a far dip down back into 170 in order for you to find some type of value for this breakout, unless you're looking at maybe some large swings that are way out, that you could look to maybe get like a 190 call or something like that and see, hoping for the expansion, right? Take a look at it the daily here. I mean, it's just a chopped mess here, right? We know we've been waiting for this expansion over 180. We've been waiting. Is it going to happen? Potentially. But like I said, we're at a 4 trillion market cap here. This really would need some type of news for it to really break over there. I mean, people get caught up in the actual trading of just, you know, few numbers here, but this is large moves towards the market cap, right, of the actual company's valuation. So as much as we think, oh, it's just jumping up to 185, no, it's a large move on NVIDIA, especially after the 10-1 split. So okay, so this is it. This is what we're watching today. I think, I'm just kidding, y'all. I'm just kidding. Let me cover Tesla. All right. Full exposure here. 470. All right. I'm going to turn this on, our GEX levels. This is for the weekly. I'm going to show you when we have a band created like this can mean one of two things. This can mean that it's going to attract the price, or it's going to act two different parts of a magnet, right? You have the attraction, or you have the reverse polarity, and that drives it away. Generally speaking, when we see setups like this, it's driven to it. So watch the 462 to 470 range be drawn to today. This is definitely something that you need to be looking for, and you could probably find some really good gains on the fact that this thing has the opportunity to run all the way to 470, and we have pretty good data to say that. All right, let's look at Tesla's data real quick. You can take a look at this. We have two overhead shorts here, right? This is probably some type of put credit spread, but someone bought them, right? And this is popping up here, and we're seeing virtually a strong drive into this range here towards 470. So this could be some type of balance play. I'm not, who knows? You decipher that, you spend too long on it. 470 is the draw here. Two, like I said, two overhead shorts with some negative pressure, but the real draw is 470 here. So I'm expecting it to be drawn into that 462.5 today, potentially see 470. All right. If it hits 470, I would not be surprised to see the expansion on 500 blow up this week, and that has potential. Because if you look at the full complex, we know our next target is 500. But when will that expire? I think the largest chunk of that, yeah, it's not this week. So it's a collective. You don't have any large, massive ones. I mean, you have another expiration, 11/21. Let's take a look at 11/21. That's the chunk of it, right? So will this hold up? Will they stop this thing from going over at 11/21, or will it pull back before that if it visits it? I would watch that. As you can see, the expiration here at 11/21 here, definitely something you need to be monitoring on NVIDIA or on Tesla here. But Tesla has a full blown look to drive this up towards that area here today. So you want to take a lotto on the week? There's your lotto right there. I'm going to open up a couple, I believe, for the week, aiming for 470 right virtually at open, and see what happens. If the market and the S&P does sell down and slip here, we'll probably find ourselves consolidating on Tesla. But if this thing starts to get that squeeze towards 6,700, I would really watch Tesla to get into that 460 to 470 range today. So excited for it. We'll see what happens. So, hey guys, I want to do a quick shout out. Like I said, our sponsors are great. Make sure you go and take advantage of the 14-day free trial and the link in the bio on GammaEdge. But if you want to trade with us, come to RawStocksLLC.com. That is RawStocksLLC.com. We have links in the bio for that as well. And we have a 7-day, $7 trial where you get full access for only $7, and you get an entire week's access of every trade from our 5 analysts. We get our daily trade plans, our weekly trade plans, and a breakdown of what we do in all of our trades. So, all right. Hey, till next time, we'll catch you later.